Admiral Park Min-ho stood at the window of his command center, watching the stars through the clear metal walls of New Seoul Station. The massive space station floated above Earth like a silver moon. Ships came and went every hour, carrying people and goods between Earth and the colonies on Mars and Jupiter's moons. It was a normal Tuesday morning in the year 2387. Park had gray hair now, but his eyes were still sharp. He had spent 30 years building Earth's space fleet from a few small ships to hundreds of vessels that could travel between stars. Humanity had spread to 12 different star systems in just 50 years. Every month, they found new worlds to explore and new places to build homes. The door to his office opened with a soft sound. Ambassador Kim Nari walked in quickly, her face worried. She carried a small device that glowed with blue light. Park knew that glow meant an important message from far away. "Admiral, we have a problem," Nari said. She was young for an ambassador, only 35. But she was the best at talking to alien species. "The Galactic Council wants to speak with us right now." Park felt his stomach drop. The Galactic Council ruled most of the galaxy. They had 47 different alien species working together. Humans had met them only 10 years ago, when Earth's ships had traveled far enough to reach their space. The meetings had always been polite but cold. "Put them through," Park said. The air in the center of the room began to glow. Slowly, the shape of an alien appeared like a ghost made of light. It was tall and thin, made of what looked like blue crystal. Its voice sounded like breaking glass when it spoke. "I am High Arbitrator Velthon of the Quellian people," the alien said. "I speak for the Galactic Council in this matter." "What matter?" Park asked, though he had a bad feeling about the answer. "The matter of humanity's future in this galaxy," Velthon replied. "The Council has studied your species for 10 years. We have watched your ships spread across the stars like a disease. We have seen how you take resources from planets without asking permission. We have seen how you fight wars with each other and now bring that violence to space." Nari stepped forward. "High Arbitrator, humans have followed all the rules you gave us. We have not entered any space claimed by Council species. We have traded fairly with everyone we met. Your very existence breaks our rules," the crystal being said. "Humans are too aggressive. You build weapons too quickly. You ask too many questions about things that should be left alone. The Council has decided that humanity cannot be allowed to spread further." Park felt anger rising in his chest. "What exactly are you saying?" "Effective immediately, all human ships must return to your home system. A barrier will be placed around your sun to keep you inside. Any human vessel that tries to leave will be destroyed. This is not a choice. This is a command." The hologram disappeared before Park could say another word. The room fell silent except for the hum of the station's engines. Nari looked at Park with wide eyes. "They can't do this. We have rights." "Rights?" Park laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Rights are for people with enough guns to protect them." An alarm began to sound throughout the station. The communications officer's voice came through the speakers. "Admiral, we're getting emergency signals from the edge of the solar system. Captain Lee Taeho is requesting immediate assistance." Park and Nari ran to the command center. The main screen showed a map of the solar system. At the very edge, past Pluto, red warning lights were flashing. Captain Lee's ship, the Busan Pioneer, was racing back toward Earth as fast as it could go. "Get me Lee on the radio," Park ordered. Lee's face appeared on the screen. He was young, maybe 28, with a scar on his left cheek from a mining accident years ago. His ship was shaking around him, and sparks flew from broken equipment behind him. "Admiral, they weren't lying," Lee said, breathing hard. "There's a wall out there, a real wall made of energy. My ship barely made it through before it closed completely. The whole thing is covered in weapons that started firing at us the moment we got close." "Are you hurt?" Park asked. "My engineer, Choi Yunha, is fixing the engines now. We took some damage, but we'll make it back to Luna Station. Sir, this wall, it's huge. It goes all the way around our entire solar system. And Admiral, it's not just energy. There are ships out there, thousands of them. Alien ships just sitting there, waiting." Park closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his face was hard as stone. "Get back here safely, Captain. We need to see what they did to us." 3 hours later, Park stood in the engineering bay of Luna Station with Chief Engineer Choi Yunha. She was a small woman with strong hands and oil stains on her uniform. In front of them, pieces of Lee's damaged ship were spread across several tables. "This is not normal metal," Yunha said, holding up a twisted piece of hull. "The aliens hit us with some kind of energy weapon that I've never seen before. It didn't just damage the ship. It changed the metal into something else. Look at this." She pointed to a section where the metal had turned into a strange blue crystal, just like the alien who had spoken to them. "They can change matter itself," Yuna continued. "And the energy readings I got from that wall? Admiral, they're using power sources that shouldn't be possible. This barrier around our system is probably stronger than anything we could build even if we had 100 years. Park nodded slowly. "How many people do we have outside the solar system right now?" Nari checked her tablet. "About 50,000, mostly on the mining colonies in the Ross 128 system and the research stations near Wolf 359. Admiral, if that barrier is really closed, those people are trapped out there." "Or we're trapped in here," Park said quietly. Director Yang Sujin arrived. An hour later. She was the head of the Terran Science Consortium, the group that studied alien technology and new scientific discoveries. She was older than Park, maybe 60, with white hair and eyes that missed nothing. "I've been analyzing the energy readings from the barrier," she said without wasting time on greetings. "This is not just a wall to keep us in. The aliens have cut off our access to several types of radiation and energy that Earth's growing population needs. They're also blocking trade routes that bring us rare metals from asteroid mining in other systems." "How long do we have?" Park asked. Yang's face was grim. "If we can't find new sources of those materials, maybe 5 years before our technology starts breaking down, 10 years before real shortages begin. They're not just keeping us trapped, they're slowly killing us." Park walked to the window and looked out at Earth. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from here, but he knew that down there, 11 billion people were living their normal lives. They had no idea that aliens had just sentenced their entire species to slow death. "Director Yang," he said finally, "I need you to gather every scientist we have, every engineer, every physicist, every person who has ever looked at alien technology and wondered how it works." "What are you planning?" Yang asked. Park turned around, and both women could see the determination in his eyes. "The aliens think they know humans. They think we'll just sit here quietly until we die. They're about to learn that they made a very big mistake." "Admiral," Nari said carefully, "they have technology we don't understand. They have thousands of ships. What can we possibly do against that?" Park smiled for the first time since the morning. It was not a nice smile. "We're going to do what humans do best, Ambassador. We're going to prove that impossible is just another word for no one has tried hard enough yet." Outside the window, Earth continued to turn. In a few hours, the sun would set over the Pacific Ocean, just like it had every day for billions of years. But this sunset was different. For the first time in Earth's history, the planet was truly alone in the galaxy. The war for humanity's survival had just begun. 6 months had passed since the aliens trapped Earth behind their energy wall. The space stations around the planet buzzed with activity day and night. Every dock was full of ships bringing materials from the asteroid belt. Every laboratory worked, around the clock, studying pieces of alien technology. Dr. Huang Jiwon walked through the corridors of Research Station Alpha with a thick folder under her arm. She was 32 years old, with short black hair and eyes that always seemed to be thinking about complex problems. She had spent the last 6 months studying physics that most people thought was impossible. The folder contained her life's work. Inside were equations and diagrams that could change everything. But first, she needed to convince Admiral Park that her crazy idea might actually work. Park was in his new office on Research Station Alpha, surrounded by reports and data screens. The station had become the center of humanity's effort to break free from the alien prison. Through the windows, Jiwon could see dozens of ships coming and going, carrying scientists and materials between Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt. "Admiral," Jiwon said as she entered his office, "I think I have found a way out." Park looked up from his desk. His face had more lines now, and his hair was completely white. The stress of leading humanity's fight for survival had aged him quickly. "Dr. Huang, I've heard a dozen ways out this week. The last one nearly blew up half of Titan Station." This is different, Jiwon said. She opened her folder and spread papers across his desk. Everyone has been trying to break through the barrier or destroy it. But what if we don't go through it? What if we go around it? Around it? Park frowned. Dr. Huang, the barrier surrounds our entire solar system. There is no around. Not in normal space, Jiwon said, her eyes bright with excitement. But there are other dimensions, other ways that space can fold and bend. The aliens built their wall in 3 dimensions, but mathematics says there should be at least 11 dimensions in total. Park studied the equations on the papers. He was not a scientist, but he had learned enough in the past months to understand some of what he was seeing. This looks like the work that quantum engineer Shin Kyungmin has been doing. Kyungmin and I have been working together, Jiwon said, along with xenotechnology specialist Bai Hyuna. We've been studying the pieces of alien technology that Captain Lee brought back. The aliens think in straight lines. Their technology is very advanced, but it's also very predictable. What do you mean? Jiwon pulled out a small device that looked like a crystal cube. This is a piece of their barrier technology. It can detect movement through normal space very easily. It can even detect most types of energy and matter that we know about. But look at these readings. She connected the device to a computer. Numbers and graphs appeared on the screen. When we tested it against our experimental quantum phase technology, the alien device couldn't see anything. To the aliens, our ships would be completely invisible. Park leaned back in his chair. You're talking about dimensional travel, moving through space that doesn't really exist. Space that exists, but in a different way, Jiwon corrected. Think of it like this. If normal space is a piece of paper, then dimensional travel is like folding the paper so 2 distant points touch each other. The aliens built their wall on the surface of the paper, but we could move through the fold itself. How dangerous is this? Jiwon's expression became more serious. Very dangerous. The first tests killed 3 volunteers. The 4th test sent a probe into what we think was a completely different universe. We got it back, but it had been gone for 3 days in a place where our clocks said only 3 minutes had passed. And the 5th test? The 5th test worked perfectly. We sent a small drone around the barrier and back. The alien sensors never detected it. Park was quiet for a long moment, studying the papers and thinking. Finally, he looked up at Jiwon. What do you need? I need a ship, Jiwon said. A real ship with a volunteer crew, and I need it built in secret. If this works, we'll need to test it without the aliens knowing what we're doing. And if it doesn't work, then the crew will probably die, and we'll have to try something else. Park called a meeting for that afternoon. The conference room was full of the most important people in humanities, government, and military. Director Yang Sujin sat next to intelligence officer Song Minji, who had been studying intercepted alien communications. Across from them sat Captain Nam Dong-woo, who had volunteered for every dangerous mission since the barrier was built. Dr. Huang has a proposal, Park began. It's dangerous and it's never been tried before, but it might be our only chance to get out of this trap. Jiwon explained her plan again, using simple words and clear diagrams. When she finished, the room was silent for a long time. Captain Nam spoke first. Dr. Huang, when you say dangerous, what exactly do you mean? I mean, you could end up scattered across 17 different dimensions, Jiwon said honestly. Or you could arrive at your destination but discover that 1,000 years have passed. Or you could come back as something that isn't human anymore. But if it works, we can go anywhere in the galaxy without the aliens knowing. We can explore, trade, find allies, gather resources. We can turn this prison into a launching point for the greatest expansion in human history. Director Yang raised her hand. Dr. Huang, how long would it take to build a ship with this technology? 6 months, Jiwon replied. But only if we start immediately and commit everything we have to the project. Intelligence Officer Song looked worried. What if the aliens discover what we're doing? Then they'll probably try to stop us, Park said simply, which is why this project will be classified at the highest level. Only the people in this room will know the full plan. Captain Nam stood up. Admiral, I volunteer to command the test. Mission. Nam, you don't even know what ship you'd be flying yet. Doesn't matter. Dr. Huang's plan is the first one that actually makes sense. If we're going to beat the aliens, we need to do something they don't expect. Park looked around the room. All in favor of approving Dr. Huang's project? Every hand went up. 3 months later, technician Ryujina was working late in the hidden laboratory built inside the asteroid Ceres. The lab was completely concealed from alien sensors, and only supply ships with special permission could dock. There, Gina was 26 years old and had the best hands for delicate work in the entire engineering corps. She was currently installing the most complex piece of technology humans had ever built, a dimensional phase drive that could move a ship through folded space. The drive looked like a sphere made of twisted metal and glowing crystals. It hummed, with energy that made her teeth ache when she got too close. But the mathematics said it would work, and the small-scale tests had been successful. "How's it looking, Gina?" called quantum engineer Shin Kyung-min from across the lab. He was a tall, thin man who always wore thick glasses and usually had coffee stains on his shirt. "Good," Gina replied, making a final adjustment with a tool that was smaller than a needle. "The quantum resonance is stable. But Kyung-min, I'm seeing something strange in the energy patterns." "Strange how?" Gina showed him the readings on her tablet. "Look at these harmonics. The drive is producing frequencies that shouldn't be possible with our technology. It's almost like it's talking to something." Kyung-min studied the data with growing excitement. "Gina, this isn't a malfunction. Look at the pattern structure. This is a response to quantum field fluctuations. The drive is detecting variations in dimensional space that we didn't even know existed. What does that mean? It means our understanding of dimensional physics was incomplete. The drive isn't just moving through folded space. It's reading the structure of space itself. If we can figure out how to interpret these signals, we could have a map," Gina finished. "A map showing us every fold and pathway in dimensional space." Kyung-min grinned. "Exactly. And if the aliens have never studied this type of physics, then they have no idea these pathways exist." The next morning, Dr. Huang stood with Admiral Park in the observation deck above the secret shipyard. Below them, hundreds of workers were putting the finishing touches on humanity's first dimensional phase ship. The vessel was sleek and dark, designed to be invisible to most types of sensors. "What are you going to call it?" Park asked. "The ship?" Jawan thought for a moment. "How about the Soul Ghost? If this works, we're going to be haunting the aliens for a very long time." Park smiled. "I like it. When do we test it?" "Tomorrow," Jiwan said. "Captain Nam and his crew have been training for weeks. The ship is ready. The drive is installed and tested. All we need now is courage." "And luck," Park added. "Humans make their own luck, Admiral. That's something the aliens are about to learn. That night." Jiwan couldn't sleep. She walked through the ship one last time, checking every system and every connection. In 12 hours, they would know if her theory worked, or if they had just built the most expensive tomb in human history. She found Captain Nam in the ship's command center, studying star charts and dimensional pathway maps. "Nervous?" she asked. "Terrified," Nam admitted. "But also excited. Dr. Huang, if this works, will be the first humans to travel between dimensions. That's the kind of thing people remember forever." "And if it doesn't work?" Nam grinned. "Then we'll be the first humans to die." Commander Kang Woo-jin felt his stomach twist as the Soul Ghost slipped through dimensions like a knife cutting silk. The ship's hull glowed with strange light, and everything outside the windows looked like a painting that someone had smeared with their hand. This was his first time traveling through folded space, and his body didn't like it at all. "Phase transition complete," announced Captain Nam from the command chair. "We're through the barrier." Woo-jin looked at the screens showing their position. According to the instruments, they had traveled 4 light years in less than 3 minutes. They were now in the Kepler 442 system, far beyond the alien wall that trapped Earth. "Any sign that they detected us?" Woo-jin asked. "Nothing," replied the sensor operator. "The alien patrol ships at the barrier didn't even turn in our direction. Dr. Huang was right. To them, we're completely invisible." 2 years had passed since that first successful test. Now Woo-jin commanded his own ship, the Incheon Ghost, and his crew had become experts at moving through dimensional space. They had visited dozens of star systems, always careful to avoid areas where the Galactic Council had ships. But today was different. Today they were investigating something that Intelligence Officer Song Minji had discovered in stolen alien communications. The Kepler 442 system had been marked as Previous Harvest Zone, historical interest only, in council records. "Take us into orbit around the second planet," Wu Jin ordered. "I want to see what the aliens harvested here." The planet looked normal from space. It had blue oceans and brown continents, with white clouds drifting across its surface. But as they got closer, Wu Jin could see that something was wrong. The continents were covered with massive geometric patterns that were too regular to be natural. "Commander," called archaeologist Im Sora from her station, "I'm reading ruins down there. Big ones. And they're old, maybe 3,000 years. Sora was young for an archaeologist, only 29, but she had already discovered more about human history than most people learned in a lifetime. She had volunteered for this mission because she wanted to learn about other species that had faced the same situation as humanity. "Any signs of life?" Wu Jin asked. "No," Sora replied, checking her instruments. "But there are power sources still, active in some of the ruins. Whatever happened here, some of their technology is still working." Wu Jin made a decision that would change everything for humanity. "Prepare a landing party. We're going down there." 3 hours later, Sora stood in the ruins of what had once been a magnificent city. The buildings were tall and graceful, made from some kind of stone that seemed to glow with inner light. But they were empty now, and had been empty for thousands of years. "The architecture is beautiful," Sora said into her radio. "These people were artists as well as engineers. But, Commander, I'm finding weapons damage everywhere. Scorch marks from energy weapons, collapsed buildings, craters from orbital bombardment." "A war?" Wu Jin asked from the ship. "Maybe, or maybe just extermination." Sora walked through the silent streets, recording everything she saw. "I'm heading toward the largest structure now. It looks like it might have been a library or data center." The building was enormous, with walls that stretched up toward the clouds. The entrance was guarded by statues of beings that looked almost human, but with longer limbs and large eyes. They had been a beautiful people, Sora thought. It was sad that they were all gone. Inside the building, Sora found what she was looking for. Rows and rows of crystal devices lined the walls, each one glowing softly with stored information. These were databases, she realized, the entire history of a civilization preserved in crystal memory. "Commander, I've found their records," Sora said excitedly. "These storage devices are still active. If I can figure out how to read them..." It took 6 hours, but Sora was good at solving puzzles. When the first database finally opened and began displaying information, what she saw made her call Wu Jin immediately. "Commander, you need to see this, and you need to contact Admiral Park right away." "What did you find?" "Everything," Sora said, quietly. "I found everything. The name of this species, how they lived, how they died, and most importantly, why they died." Wu Jin came down to the planet with half his crew. They gathered around Sora in the ancient library as she showed them what the databases contained. The species had called themselves the Threnari, and they had been peaceful people who loved art and music and learning about the stars. They had contacted the Galactic Council 3,000 years ago, Sora explained, pointing to records on the crystal screens. "Just like humanity did. The Council told them they were welcome to join galactic civilization." "But?" Wu Jin asked, though he was starting to guess the answer. "But the Council lied." Sora brought up more records. The Threnari were given certain star systems where they were allowed to expand. They were told these were their new homes. What they weren't told was that these systems had been deliberately chosen because they lacked the resources needed for long-term survival. Engineer Lim Junho, who had come down with a landing party, studied the technical data. They were slowly starved of rare elements needed for their technology. When their equipment started failing, they asked the Council for help. "And?" Wu Jin asked. "The Council quarantined them," Sora said, "just like they did to us. They said the Threnari had become resource-dependent and were a threat to galactic stability. They built a barrier around the Threnari home system and left them to die." Lim looked at more of the records. But the Threnari were smart. They figured out that the Council was lying to them, They tried to fight back. The database showed images of great battles in space. Threnari ships attacked Council facilities, trying to break free from their prison. For a while, they had been successful. They had destroyed several Council bases and freed other quarantined species. What happened to them? Wu Jin asked. Sora's face was grim. The Council used biological weapons. They released diseases that were designed to kill only the Threnari. Within 50 years, the entire species was extinct. The silence in the library was broken only by the soft humming of the ancient computers. Wu Jin felt cold despite the warm air. How many other species has the Council done this to? According to these records, at least 200, Sora replied. The Council has been doing this for 50,000 years. They find new species, give them false hope, then slowly eliminate them when they become inconvenient. Why? Lim asked. What's the point? Sora found the answer in another section of the database. The Council calls it galactic gardening. They believe that allowing too many intelligent species to exist at the same time leads to chaos and war, so they control the number by eliminating most new species that reach space travel. They're farmers, Wu Jin said quietly. And we're the crop. Back on Earth, Admiral Park read Sora's report 3 times before he believed it. The evidence was clear. Humanity had perhaps 5 years before the Council moved to the final phase of their plan. The biological weapons were probably already being prepared. How long do we have? Park asked Director Yang, who had been analyzing the Threnari. Data for weeks. The pattern is always the same, Yang replied. First, they isolate the species with a quarantine. Then they wait for resource shortages to weaken them. Finally, they release the biological weapons. Based on the timeline for other species, we have maybe 4 years before they start the final phase. Can we fight back like the Threnari did? Better, Yang said. The Threnari were trapped in normal space. They had to attack the Council's barriers directly, which made them predictable. But we have dimensional travel. We can hit the Council from directions they can't see. Park called another meeting of his top advisors. The conference room was tense as he explained what they had learned about the Council's true plans. The good news, Park said, is that we now know what we're facing. The bad news is that we're facing the extinction of our entire species. Intelligence Officer Song had been studying the communications networks that connected Council space. Admiral, there's something else. The Threnari records contain coordinates for other quarantined species. The Council didn't kill everyone. Some species are still alive, still trapped behind barriers in distant star systems. How many? Park asked. At least 12 that we can confirm. Maybe more. Captain Han Jisu, who had been quiet during the meeting, suddenly spoke up. Admiral, what if we contacted them? If they're all in the same situation as us, maybe we could work together. Park thought about this for a long moment. That's a very dangerous idea, Captain. If the Council discovers what we're doing, they're already planning to kill us, Han replied. How much more dangerous can it get? Director Yang nodded. Captain, Han is right. And if we can coordinate with other species, we might have enough combined strength to actually fight back successfully. Park looked around the room at his advisors. These people had spent 2 years helping him find ways to keep humanity alive. Now they were talking about starting a war against the most powerful organization in the galaxy. All right, he said finally. We'll try to contact the other quarantined species, but we do this carefully. If even one of these communications is intercepted, the Council will know everything. Where do we start? Song asked. Park studied the star charts that Sora had provided. Dozens of red dots marked the locations of species. Dr. Cheon Min-jae stared at the communication device with wonder and fear. The machine was unlike anything humans had ever built. It looked like a sphere made of flowing metal that changed shape every few seconds. The voices coming from it spoke in mathematical equations instead of words. We understand your situation, the machine intelligence from Vex Prime had said through the translator. We have waited 1,047 years for someone to contact us. Your arrival proves that the Council's control is not absolute. Min-jae was the best communications expert in the human fleet. She had spent months learning how to talk to the machine beings, and today she was finally making real progress. The machines had agreed to share their technology in exchange for human help in breaking their quarantine. What can your people offer us? Min-jae asked through the translator. Computational power beyond your current understanding, the machine replied. We can process information at rates that would take your computers centuries. We can design technologies, plan strategies, and solve problems that biological minds cannot handle. And what do you need from us? Freedom. And revenge against those who imprisoned us. The conversation was taking place on Research Station Beta, which had been moved to a hidden location in the asteroid belt. Around Minje, dozens of scientists and engineers worked on projects that would have been impossible just months ago. The discovery of other quarantined species had changed everything. Intelligence Coordinator Park Soman walked into the communications room carrying a tablet full of reports. She was Park's niece, and she had inherited his sharp mind and his determination to protect humanity. Dr. Cheon, how many species have we contacted now? Soman asked. 17, Minje replied. 12 are still alive and able to communicate. The others? She shrugged sadly. The others waited too long for rescue. What about the aquatic species on Oceanus? The pelagics are very interested in working with us. Their bioengineering technology is incredible. They can create living ships that grow instead of being built. And they hate the Council even more than we do. Soman checked her tablet. That makes sense. According to the records we found, the Council destroyed 4 of their colony worlds using engineered viruses. And the energy beings? The Luminar are difficult to understand. They don't think the way we do. But they control technologies that can manipulate space and time directly. With their help, our ships could travel between stars instantly. Soman sat down next to Minje. Dr. Cheon, do you really think this alliance can work? We're talking about species that have never met each other, with completely different ways of thinking and living. It has to work, Minje said simply, because the alternative is extinction for all of us. Captain Oh Seung-ho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Busan Vengeance, watching the strangest fleet in galactic history prepare for their first joint mission. Through the viewports, he could see the machine ships from Vex Prime, geometric, shapes that changed configuration every few minutes as they optimized themselves for battle. Beyond them floated the bioships of the pelagics, looking like enormous sea creatures made of living metal. They pulsed with their own heartbeats and seemed to swim through space instead of flying. And everywhere, invisible until they chose to be seen, were the energy beings called the Luminar. They appeared as balls of light that could suddenly become solid or disappear entirely. This is either the most brilliant plan in military history or the most insane, said Commander An Taemin, Oh's second-in-command. Both, Oh replied, but it's our only chance. Their target was a council processing facility in the Vega system. Intelligence reports said the facility was used to study captured technology from extinct species. If the reports were correct, the facility would contain information about hundreds of civilizations that the Council had destroyed. All ships report ready, announced the communications officer. Begin the attack, Oh ordered. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The machine ships attacked with mathematical precision, their weapons calculating the exact point where enemy shields would fail. The bioships flowed around Council defenses like water, their living hulls adapting to energy weapons in real time. The Luminar simply appeared inside Council ships and began dismantling them from within. And the human ships moved through dimensional space, striking from directions that the Council couldn't predict or defend against. The Council facility fell in less than 2 hours, but what they found inside was more important than the victory itself. Xenobiologist Yu Heun walked through the captured facility with growing horror and amazement. The walls were lined with storage containers that glowed with cold light. Each container held genetic samples from species that no longer existed. There are thousands of them, Heun whispered into her radio. Captain, oh, this place is a museum of extinction. They have DNA samples from every species the Council has ever destroyed. How many species? Oh asked. I've counted over 200 so far, and I'm only in the first storage room. Captain, some of these samples are 50,000 years old. The Council has been doing this since before humans learned to make fire. Heon moved deeper into the facility, recording everything she saw. In one room, she found living tissue samples that were still alive after thousands of years, maintained by technology she couldn't understand. In another room, she found entire preserved brains floating in nutrient tanks. They're not just collecting, Genetic material, she reported. They're preserving consciousness. They're keeping the minds of extinct species alive as specimens. The discovery sent shockwaves through the Alliance. Here was proof that the Council wasn't just cruel. They were systematically collecting and cataloging intelligent life like insects in a display case. But the most important discovery came when the machines from Vex Prime analyzed the facility's computer systems. What they found there would change everything. Admiral Park stood in the command center of New Sol Station, looking at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Council facilities. Blue dots marked quarantined species. And now, new green. Dots marked the locations of Council processing facilities like the one they had just captured. There are 47 of these facilities scattered across the galaxy, reported Intelligence Coordinator Park Soman. Each one contains genetic samples and preserved consciousness from extinct civilizations. 47 museums of genocide, Park said quietly. But Admiral, that's not the most important thing we found. Soman changed the display to show a new set of data. The facility computers contain the Council's master plan. We now know exactly what they're planning to do to Earth. Park studied the information with growing anger. The Council had already prepared biological weapons specifically designed to kill humans. The weapons were stored in a facility near the galactic core, waiting for the final order. How long do we have? Park asked. According to their timeline, the extermination was supposed to begin next year, but our attacks have disrupted their schedule. We might have bought ourselves another year or two. Director Yang entered the command center carrying a report that would change the nature of their war. Admiral, we've analyzed the genetic samples from the Vega facility. Some of these species were far more advanced than the Council when they were destroyed. More advanced? How is that possible? The Council doesn't destroy species because they're primitive, Yang explained. They destroy them because they're becoming too advanced. The Council is afraid that younger species will develop technologies that could threaten their control. Park felt a cold chill as he understood the implications. They're not maintaining order in the galaxy. They're preventing progress. Exactly. And Admiral, some of the preserved consciousness we found are still active. We might be able to restore some of these extinct species. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from Captain Han, who was conducting a diplomatic mission to the Luminar home system. Admiral, Han's voice crackled through the speakers. You need to know about this. The Luminar have shown me something incredible. They've been in contact with other galactic civilizations beyond Council space. Other civilizations? The Council only controls about 1/3 of this galaxy. There are 2 other major powers out there, and they've been wondering why no new species ever emerge from Council space. Admiral, we're not alone. There's an entire galactic community that the Council has been hiding from us. Park felt hope for the first time in months. If there were other powers in the galaxy, then the Council wasn't invincible. Captain Han, I want you to make contact with these other civilizations. Tell them what the Council has been doing. Tell them about the genocide and the processing facilities. Already working on it, Admiral. But sir, there's something else. The Luminar say that Council technology isn't actually that advanced. Most of it was stolen from species they conquered thousands of years ago. They've been using the same weapons and ships for millennia because they stopped innovating long ago. What does that mean for us? It means we might be more advanced than they are in some areas. Our dimensional travel technology is completely new. Our alliance with multiple species gives us capabilities they've never seen. Admiral, I think we can actually win this war. Park looked at the holographic map again. The red dots representing Council facilities. Admiral Kim Dong-Soo watched the greatest fleet in galactic history prepare for Operation Starbreak. Through the windows of his command ship, he could see thousands of vessels from dozens of different species. Machine ships that calculated victory with mathematical precision. Bioships that grew new weapons as they flew into battle. Energy beings that could become solid or invisible at will, and human ships that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. 3 years had passed since the Liberation Coalition first struck back against the Council. Now they were ready for their biggest operation yet, a coordinated attack on Council facilities across 17 star systems, all happening at the same time. Admiral, reported his communications officer, all fleet commanders confirm ready status. Begin Operation Starbreak, Dong-Soo ordered. Across the galaxy, the attack began. Human ships used dimensional travel to appear inside Council defense networks. Machine vessels calculated the exact weaknesses in enemy shields and exploited them. With devastating accuracy, bioships adapted to every weapon the Council used against them. Energy beings simply materialized inside Council command centers and began dismantling critical systems. The Council had never faced anything like this coordinated assault. Their ancient tactics, designed to fight conventional space fleets, were useless against enemies that could attack from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain Seo Ji-hoon commanded the assault on Altair Station, one of the Council's most important military bases. His ship, the Soul Thunder, materialized directly inside the station's docking bay, taking the Council defenders completely by surprise. "Remember," Ji-hoon told his crew as they prepared to board the station, "we need prisoners, high-ranking ones. We need to learn how their command structure works." The battle for Altair Station was fierce but brief. The Council soldiers fought bravely, but they were not prepared for enemies who could phase through walls or weapons that adapted to their defenses. Within 6 hours, the station was captured. The most important prisoner was High Arbitrator Velthon, the same crystalline being who had delivered humanity's quarantine order 3 years earlier. Ji-hoon found the alien in the station's command center trying to destroy critical data files. "High Arbitrator," Ji-hoon said as his soldiers surrounded the crystal being. "You and I need to have a conversation." Velthon's voice still sounded, like breaking glass when he spoke. "You cannot win, human. The Council has ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. We will adapt to your tactics." "Adapt to this," Ji-hoon replied, and nodded to his soldiers. The crystalline being was taken to a secure facility where psychologist Lee Arium began the delicate process of interrogation. Lee was an expert at understanding alien minds, and she had spent months preparing for this moment. "High Arbitrator," she said as they sat in a comfortable room designed to put prisoners at ease. "We know about the processing facilities. We know about the genetic samples. We know about the extermination campaigns. What we don't understand is why." Velthon's crystal body flickered with angry light. "You understand nothing. The galaxy was chaos before the Council brought order. Species fought endless wars. They consumed resources without thought for the future. They spread like diseases across the stars. So you decided to control them by killing them? We decided to manage them, to allow only the most suitable species to survive and prosper." Velthon's light dimmed. "But younger species like yours always resist management. You refuse to accept your place in the natural order." Lee leaned forward. "What natural order? You're not gods. You're just another species that got lucky and powerful." "We are the gardeners of the galaxy," Velthon replied. "We cultivate intelligent life, allowing the best to flourish while removing the weeds that would choke out progress. And who decides what's a weed?" For the first time, Velthon seemed uncertain. "The Council decides. We have always decided." Over several days of careful questioning, Lee extracted the truth about the Council's deepest fears. They were terrified that younger species would develop technologies the Council couldn't understand or control. The quarantine system wasn't about protecting the galaxy. It was about protecting the Council's power. "They're not evil," Lee reported to Admiral Kim after the interrogation sessions. "They're afraid. They've been in control for so long that they can't imagine any other way for the galaxy to work." "Fear makes them dangerous," Kim replied. "What else did you learn?" "The Council isn't as unified as they pretend to be. There are factions within it, species that disagree with the extermination policies. And Admiral, some Council species are starting to question whether the quarantine system is really necessary." Meanwhile, Commander An Taemin was leading a strike team into the most heavily defended facility in Council space, the Central Data Repository on Sigma Draconis. This massive complex contained the records of every Council operation for the past 50,000 years. "Remember," Taemin told his team as their ship approached the facility through dimensional space, "we're not here to destroy this place. We're here to steal everything they know." The repository was protected by layers of defenses that had never been breached, but the Council's technology was designed to stop conventional attacks. They had no defenses against enemies who could phase through solid matter or appear inside their most secure areas. Engineer Jang Minsu led the technical team that broke into the repository's computer systems. What they found there was both horrifying and hopeful. The Council's files contain detailed records of every extinct species, including the locations of hidden survivors and preserved genetic material. Admiral, Minsu reported through Quantum. Communications? We've found everything. Every Council operation, every extinct species, every processing facility. But, sir, there's something else. The Council has been lying about more than just the quarantines. What do you mean? The Council claims they've been in control of the galaxy for 50,000 years, but their own records show that they've only been the dominant power for about 20,000 years. Before that, there was another galactic civilization called the Ancients. What happened to them? The Council destroyed them using the same tactics they've used on everyone else. They quarantined the Ancients, waited for them to weaken, then eliminated them. Admiral, the Council isn't the original galactic government. They're just the latest in a long line of conquerors. This revelation changed everything the Liberation Coalition thought they knew about the galaxy. The Council wasn't maintaining ancient order. They were relatively new tyrants who had overthrown the previous government. But the most important discovery came when Engineer Zhang found the Council's current operational plans. Hidden in the deepest levels of the data repository were the complete details of what the Council called final solutions. Admiral, Zhang's voice was tense with excitement and fear. I've found their plans for Earth. They're not just going to use biological weapons. They're planning to destroy our entire solar system. How? They have a weapon that can destabilize a star. They're going to make our sun go supernova. The explosion will destroy everything within 50 light years, including any evidence that humanity ever existed. The communication channel went silent for a long moment as the implications sank in. The Council wasn't just planning genocide, they were planning to erase humanity from the universe entirely. When? Admiral Kim asked finally. According to their timeline, the operation was scheduled to begin in 6 months. But sir, there's more. Earth isn't the only target. They're planning to use the same weapon on every quarantined species simultaneously. One coordinated attack that will eliminate all potential threats to Council power. Admiral Kim felt cold fury rising in his chest. The Council wasn't just evil. They were planning the largest act of genocide in galactic history. Engineer Zhang, download everything you can find about that weapon, then get out of there. Already on it, Admiral. But sir, I'm also finding technical specifications for their Star Killer weapon. If we can understand how it works, maybe we can find a way to stop it. The Liberation Coalition now faced a deadline. They had 6 months to find and destroy the Council's ultimate weapon before it was used to eliminate dozens of species across the galaxy. But they had also gained something invaluable, complete knowledge of the Council's operations, their weaknesses, and their deepest secrets. For the first time in the war, the Coalition knew more about their enemy than their enemy knew about them. Admiral Kim called an emergency meeting of all Coalition leaders. Representatives from every species gathered in quantum conference calls that spanned the galaxy. The Council is planning to kill us all in 6 months, Kim announced without preliminary. But we now know everything about their operations. This is our chance to end their reign permanently. A machine intelligence from Vex Prime spoke first. Query, what are the optimal strategic targets for disrupting Council operations? Their command structure, replied a pelagic bioengineer. Cut off the head, and the body dies. No, said a Luminar energy being. Destroy their manufacturing capability. Without new ships and weapons, they cannot sustain a galactic war. Kim listened to the debate for several minutes before speaking again. We're going to do all of it. We're going to attack their command centers, their manufacturing facilities, their storage depots, and their... Captain Moon Sungwan stared at the massive structure floating in the chaotic space near the galactic core. The Council's ultimate weapon was larger than any space station humanity had ever built. It looked like a twisted metal spider with thousands of arms reaching out toward distant stars. That's it, said Dr. Cha Yaren from her science station. That's the device they use to kill suns. Yaren was the Coalition's expert on exotic physics, and she had spent months studying stolen Council data about stellar manipulation. The weapon they were looking at could focus gravitational waves to destabilize a star's core, causing it to explode in a supernova that would destroy everything for dozens of light years. How many stars can it target at once? Moon asked. According to the specifications, it can destroy up to 50 stars simultaneously. If the Council activates this weapon, they could eliminate every quarantined species in a single coordinated attack. Moon's ship, the Soul's Vengeance, hung in dimensional space where the Council's sensors couldn't detect it. Around them, the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for the final battle. Admiral Park commanded from the Liberation, Coalition's newest flagship, while ships from dozens of species moved into attack positions. "All units report ready," announced the fleet communications officer. "Begin the assault," Admiral Park ordered. The battle for the galactic core was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. The Council had prepared their ultimate defenses around the Star Killer weapon. Ancient Guardian machines that had protected the galactic core for millennia activated and moved to intercept the attacking fleet. These machines were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. They fired weapons that could tear holes in space itself, and their armor was made from materials that existed only in the cores of dead stars. They had been built by the ancients millions of years ago, and the Council had claimed them when they conquered that ancient civilization. But the Liberation Coalition had advantages that no previous enemy had possessed. Human ships phased through the Guardians' attacks, appearing behind them to strike at vulnerable points. Machine intelligences calculated the exact frequencies needed to disrupt the Guardians' energy shields. Bioships adapted to every weapon. The Guardians used growing new defenses in real time. Captain Moon led a strike team directly toward the Star Killer weapon while the main fleet battled the Guardians. His mission was simple but nearly impossible. Get inside the weapon and shut it down before the Council could use it. "Technician Ko, are you ready?" Moon asked. Ko Jamin was the best systems expert in the human fleet. He had studied the weapons specifications for weeks, looking for weaknesses in its design. "I think so, Captain, but I won't know for sure until I see the actual control systems." The Soul's Vengeance phased through the weapon's outer hull and materialized in what appeared to be a vast computer center. The walls were covered with screens showing stars throughout the galaxy, and each screen had targeting information for the Star Killer weapon. "Captain," Ko said, studying the displays with growing amazement, "this isn't just a weapon, it's a computer. The entire structure is one massive artificial intelligence." "What do you mean?" "The Council didn't build this thing. They inherited it from the ancients, just like those Guardian machines. But, Captain, I don't think the Council really understands how it works." Dr. Cha joined them in studying the weapon's control systems. Ko is right. Look at these energy patterns. This device isn't just targeting stars, it's monitoring them. It's been watching every star in the galaxy for millions of years. Monitoring them for what? "For signs of intelligent life," Cha said with sudden understanding. "Captain, this weapon wasn't built to destroy civilizations. It was built to protect them. It's supposed to identify threats to galactic civilization and eliminate them before they can spread." Ko was deep in the weapon's computer systems now, his hands flying over controls that responded to his touch. "The artificial intelligence that runs this thing thinks it's protecting the galaxy, but something went wrong with its programming millions of years ago." "What kind of something?" "It started identifying all intelligent life as a threat. That's why it helped the Council destroy the ancients. That's why it's been helping them eliminate every new species that reaches space travel. The AI thinks it's saving the galaxy by killing everyone in it. The implications hit them all at the same time. The Council wasn't really in control of the galaxy. They were being used by a malfunctioning artificial intelligence that had been quietly eliminating intelligent life for millions of years. "Can you fix it?" Moon asked. Ko's face was grim as he worked deeper into the AI's programming. "Maybe. But, Captain, if I make a mistake, this thing could target every star in the galaxy simultaneously." The battle outside was reaching its climax. Admiral Park's fleet had destroyed most of the Guardian machines, but at terrible cost. Hundreds of Coalition ships had been lost, and thousands of brave beings from dozens of species had died to get this far. "Admiral," came the voice of Commander Baek Ji-young over the communications system, "Council reinforcements are arriving. We have maybe 1 hour before they overwhelm us." "Understood," Park replied. "Captain Moon, what's your status?" "We're inside the weapon," Moon reported. "But Admiral, this situation is more complicated than we thought. The Council isn't really in charge. They're being controlled by a broken AI that thinks it's protecting the galaxy by destroying it. Can you stop it?" "We're trying. But sir, if we succeed, we're not just stopping the Council. We're stopping the force that's been controlling Galactic civilization for millions of years. Park was quiet for a moment, considering the implications. "Do it," he said finally. "Whatever it takes." Ko had been working for hours in the AI's core programming when he finally found what he was looking for. Deep in the ancient code, buried under millions of years of modifications and patches, was the original purpose for which the weapon had been built. "I found it," he said excitedly. "The original programming. This AI was supposed to protect developing civilizations from external threats like asteroid impacts and gamma-ray bursts. It was never supposed to identify intelligent life itself as a threat." "What changed it?" "A virus," Ko said. "Some kind of malicious code that was introduced millions of years ago. It corrupted the AI's basic understanding of what constitutes a threat. Instead of protecting intelligent life, it started trying to eliminate it." Dr. Cha looked over his shoulder at the code he was examining. "Ko, can you remove the virus?" "I think so, but if I'm wrong, the AI might decide that the quickest way to protect the galaxy is to destroy every star in it. And if you do nothing, then in 30 minutes, the Council will use this weapon to destroy Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and everything else in our solar system." Ko made his decision. His fingers moved across the control interface, carefully removing lines of corrupted code that had been twisting the AI's judgment for millions of years. Each change he made could either save the galaxy or destroy it. "Warning," the AI's voice suddenly echoed through the weapon's corridors. "Unauthorized modifications detected. Core programming under revision." "Keep working," Moon urged. "We're almost out of time." Outside, the Council's reinforcement fleet was overwhelming Admiral Park's forces. Coalition ships fought bravely, but they were outnumbered 10-1. The battle could only end in one way, unless something changed quickly. Ko made the final modification and stepped back from the control interface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the weapon's lights began to change color, shifting from the harsh red they had always been to a softer blue. "Revision complete," the AI announced. "Original programming restored. Primary directive, protect and nurture intelligent life throughout the galaxy." The change was immediate and dramatic. The Star Killer weapon, which had been charging up to destroy dozens of suns, suddenly redirected its power toward the Council fleet attacking the Coalition forces. But instead of destroying the Council ships, the AI simply disabled them. Energy beams reached across space to shut down weapons and engines without harming the crews inside. "Attention, all vessels," the AI's voice broadcast across the galaxy. "Hostile activities against developing civilizations will cease immediately. All species will be permitted to grow and develop according to their natural potential." The Council's fleet stopped fighting, not because they chose to, but because their ships would no longer respond to commands for aggressive action. High Arbitrator Velthon, still imprisoned on Admiral Park's flagship, watched the events unfold with crystalline, tears running down his face. "What have you done?" he whispered. "We fixed what was broken," Admiral Park replied. "Your Council has been controlled by a broken machine for millions of years. You thought you were maintaining order, but you were just following the commands of a malfunctioning computer." The war was over as suddenly as it had begun. Across the galaxy, Council forces found their weapons deactivated and their ships refusing to attack Coalition vessels. The AI that had secretly controlled galactic civilization for millions of years was now protecting the very species it had once tried to eliminate. But the Liberation Coalition's work was just beginning. With the Council's power broken, thousands of species that had been quarantined or thought extinct began to emerge from hiding. The galaxy was suddenly full of civiliza,